Hello, everybody. Mary Kate Soliva with you here on Veteran Voices. Thanks for joining us today as we've got a wonderful conversation teed up with one of my all-time favorite veterans and warriors making a positive impact in this world. Stay tuned for a great conversation, great discussion with one of my besties here. Quick programming note before we get started. This program is part of the Supply Chain Now family of programming. Today's show is conducted in partnership with dear friends of actually both of ours, Vets to Industry. Learn more about this powerful nonprofit that is serving so many folks at vetstoindustry.org. And an initiative that's near and dear to my heart is actually the Guam Human Rights Initiative. You can find them on LinkedIn and at the University of Guam under the Regional Center for Public Policy. Okay, I cannot wait any longer. I've been waiting so long to talk to our special guest today. So our guest today is an advocate for transitioning service members and the veteran community. She's also a veteran of the U.S. Army, and I should add, Special Operations Community. And she's a volunteer with a goal to continue serving others. So let's welcome in Shirley Baez. Thank you so much, Shirley, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mary Kay. This is wonderful. I never even imagined doing an actual podcast with my transitional buddy. So it's a pleasure. I know, what a coincidence.
I know, and I just had to, I really wanted to bring you on. You and I both, well, I would say we were transitioning buddies for sure down at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and really wanted our listeners today to get to know you a little bit more. And I didn't add what rank you were when you got out, but I know that you were no shortness of motivation, and I really wanted to kick off this episode with some motivation. I don't know what day of the week it is when our listeners are tuning in right now, but if you could share a motivational quote of yours, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So one of my all-time favorites comes from Becky Halstead, who is the first female West Point graduate and general officer. And the quote is, "The first person you must lead is you." So that always has touched me, because you should, in order for you to lead others, you need to learn how to lead yourself. How do you lead yourself in life? So that always has motivated me and driven me forward.
I really love that. Actually, I think that's the first time I'm hearing this quote. So I really love that. And I think that just in the time that I've known you, even during our transition, that was something we both had to learn to do to really put ourselves first after spending so many times in uniform, where we're putting the team and taking care of others. And I'd really love to take it back a little bit further and start out about where you grew up, where you're from, and just a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah, so I was born in the Dominican Republic. And my parents decided to immigrate to this wonderful country that provided us a lot of opportunities. I came here when I was 7 years old, and I grew up in New York City, Washington Heights, where I was there for the better part of like 19 years before I decided to join the services. But definitely as I was growing up, I've always been kind of a creative, curious person, right? And so that translated a lot to what I did when I was young. I did some modeling. I attended High School of Fashion Industries, where I got to design and create clothing, the new wave of the future with fashion. And I also was very much into sports, and I was in the basketball team. So that's kind of like my youth in a nutshell before I joined the service.
Which I can see is like completely different than, so this would be something really interesting just to hear about that, about imagining fashionista Shirley, younger Shirley, grown up in the city. I've actually been to the Dominican Republic one time, and hands down, the best juice I've ever had in my life. Probably a super random thing, but literally the best juice. I think actually in my luggage, I carried like probably 5 or 6 boxes of juice back with me to give to my family.
Oh, it's all natural.
Souvenir.
Yeah, all natural and lovely. I mean,
yes,
that's good that you had such an amazing time, because the food the beverages, the people, the culture is amazing. So
Yes, absolutely. And the dancing, and they're just like, just in the streets, and the food, just the food trucks on the side of the road. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, it was a great time. I was there on a humanitarian mission at the time.
oh
And
yeah.
just after the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. So we went out there with some friends to just try to help out for those that were coming over the border. And it was really just an incredible life-changing experience. And I love that I've actually seen it now with the food, because sometimes I see you post about different things like the food and the culture, especially when you get together with your family.
Yeah.
So still waiting on my invite there. I think that just always looks like you and your family are always having a great time. And
Yeah.
I want to touch, do you have I've seen you in, with your family. Do you have sort of any anecdotes, sort of lessons learned from anybody that in your upbringing?
Yeah. So one of the things, that really drove me forward, because, I had a bit of a hard, growing up, right? I was very limited with the resources that me and my family had. But one of the things that really like stayed with me was the values that my dad gave me, the work ethic, being organized. He's a super organized person. And I think that's why it was easy for me to be like that in the military. But, he told me, look, this country, gave us a lot of opportunities, great opportunities. So as long as you are a hard worker and you're organized, you'll make it in this country. So that was one of the biggest things that always stayed with me, was, my dad values.
That's amazing. I really, and I also recall like some of the pictures I see of your family, a lot of strong women in your family too.
Yeah, well, yeah, and on the side of my mom's side, for the better part, we're all women, right? There's like, I don't know, you can count with your hands how many males they are, but we're mostly women, very strong, independent, entrepreneurial women,
I
and
wonder where you get it from, Shirley.
yeah, but we've all been strong, and we're different. We differentiate in ages, but now that we're all like grown up together, right? We're so close and so supportive of each other in our journey. And that is one of the things that I really do love, because my family since point one, since the very beginning of me joining the military, and now that I'm post-military, they have supported me the whole time. And so yeah, we're a very strong, big bunch of crazy women, like every family, we have our craziness and our battles and things like that. But at the end, we all love each other and support each other. So yeah.
I absolutely love that. I mean, I just imagine like a room where there's never a dull moment when you're all together.
Yeah, we're always
But
dancing. So
yeah, like our listeners can't see, but there's a lot of hand waving going in the air right now. But just on what you were saying about the lessons learned from your dad about staying organized and having that regimental schedule, let's take it to your time in uniform and a little bit about what led you to a journey, especially of all branches, the Army. um you know and so
yeah.
let's talk about that. And I can't say that I'm biased at all about glad that you chose the Army, but yeah, what led you to that point, and where did you go from there?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, when I completed, my, high school, I was contemplating what I was going to do after my life, right? And so I wanted to go to college, and start my career there. But then I saw, of course, that we couldn't afford it, right? And then my dad was making too much money for me to get a grant to go to college. And so, interestingly enough, I used to look at a lot of Navy brochures, because for some reason the white uniform,
Oh no.
really, it was very interesting. It would lead me to think like, oh my God, how would this be? You know, what would be the experience? I always admired like their white uniform, but it happened that as I was, you know, taking the train from Manhattan to Queens, I was trying to register for a college out there, and I was trying to see if I would be eligible for, you know, for assistance, for financial assistance. And of course I wasn't. And so, you know, walking back to the train station and contemplating like, oh my God, how am I going to go to college? I need to change my life. Like I need to get out of here. Like, you know, I need a change. And so as I was thinking about college, there it was, a big sign in the train station with, we'll pay for your college.
No
Join
way.
the army. Yes, I'm telling you, it was so
So
crazy.
you work. Good job.
Yes. I think, you know, that's what I think about, like, think and grow rich, right? You think it and it happens, right? And so at that time, I was really thinking about, what am I going to do? You know, they said that I wasn't eligible. And here I saw a kiosk with a big banner saying, hey, we'll pay for your college, join the US Army. I didn't know what the heck was that. And, you know, obviously there was a recruiter there who saw me really gawking at the, you know, at the banner and looking at it. And of course, that was his opportunity to go and fetch me, right? And so he talked to me about a lot of the things that I wanted to hear at that time, right? And so I was like, this is very interesting. But then another thing happened throughout that time, and that was 9/11, right? So I was already sold on, you know, going into the military. I have done a couple of the paperwork that I needed to do, went to MEPS. And then as I was going to a couple of doctor's appointment before I shipped out, I remember just like today when 9/11 hit, I was like on the 10th or 15th floor of, you know, one of the medical offices. And as I went into my appointment, I see a whole bunch of people like crying and you know, on the phone, and I didn't know what was going on, right? And so as I remember it to this day, as I see, you know, the big glass window to the very far looking downtown, I see big smoke and helicopters, you know, roaming around. And that's kind of when I knew that something weird had happened, right? That day, all transportation was free. And so as I was taking the bus back to my dad's house, because I was living with my dad at the time, that's when I got to my dad's house, they were watching the TV. And that's when I saw the Twin Towers go down, right? And it was so surreal. It was like a movie. I thought it was a movie, right? And no, my dad was like, no, Shirley, this is really happening. And so that's when my mentality and my perspective changed automatically to just being a girl that wanted to go into the military for college money to now wanting to serve my country, right? And knowing that something was happening and where I was going is where I meant to go, like where I needed to be at the time, you know. And then once I shipped out, you know, less than, when I got to my first unit, less than a month I was deployed to Iraq. So, you know, things happen for a reason. That's the way that it needed to happen at the time, but I don't regret it one bit because I helped in the effort. And, you know, the military ever since has been such a great organization and a life changer for me.
Wow, there's just so much to unpack here, because I was just thinking like they couldn't have picked a better, I mean, you're just such an outstanding, incredible soldier. And I know we don't even have time to go in through nitty gritty of your entire career, but just knowing you as a person, as an individual, as a soldier, you're amazing, outstanding. And I just, you know, for anybody who made that billboard, you know, if they're tuning in right now, good job.
Yeah.
Good recruitment tactic. It worked on Shirley. And I think for even for myself, and I'm sure our listeners know where they were standing, where they were at the day that the Twin Towers fell. And it definitely changed all of our lives. We haven't been the same since. And to just think back to that about where we were and call to service, that was the same for me as well. I wasn't old enough yet to raise my right hand, but it was something that definitely made a huge impact in me, just counting down the time to graduation to be able to join. So I think that I'd love to go a little bit more into your time in the Army, and sort of, you only were in like not even 3 months yet, and you were already deployed. So what was that like for you? I mean, at this point, your family's thoughts, was this something that you were amped up to go, the fears, and talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's funny, right? I came in at the tender age of 19. And even though I knew that I was going somewhere where I, it was a calling for me at the time, at that point in
Right.
time, I didn't really know what I was getting into, like
Yeah.
I was just following my squad leader, right? My, my first sergeant, and I speak to some of my colleagues, and we recollect and think about, reminisce those times, like, we were so young, and we just saw it as an adventure. We just saw it as something that we needed to do, you know, that we needed to serve. And we didn't even think about the dangers that were out there.
Mm.
It was just so weird, because it's like, wow, now that I think back to it, I'm like, man, one of my first missions, I was standing, I was sitting up at the turret of a big truck manning a 249, right? Driving around Iraq, and I didn't even think about it. And I'm like thinking, like, oh my God, this was pretty dangerous, So, but at the time in my mind, I knew that I needed to conduct my mission,
Right.
and conduct the intent of our commanders, and that was was in my mind. And of course my family, it was something that they didn't even expect. Wow,
Mm.
timing, right? You raised your your hand to go into the military, and oh, by the way, 9/11 just happened. So of course they had some concerns, but again, they've always been so supportive of me, more than ever when I was deployed to areas around the world. But definitely, I was young, I was motivated, I took care of business. It was fun because I found a tribe, I found family, right? We were all so young,
Absolutely.
and so supportive of each other, of because I was in logistics the first 9 years of my career. And I had my other logistical buddies there. We worked together and we made it fun for each other, and we accomplished the mission, So that was what was on our minds the whole time. It wasn't even really, oh, this is, dangerous, or something can happen, At the time, it was duty, right? So
I just imagine that how it was for those who knew you at that time, that you came, this fashionista city gal, and now you're you said a turret with the 249,
I
just in the,
know.
and just night and day, and just the growth that happens, during that time of our lives when we first join the military. And you mentioned a first sergeant, and just sort of that your squad leader following them around. Can you do a couple people stick out to you from that time? I know in the span of the time you were in the Army, I'm sure there's many, but there are a couple that really took you under their wing, perhaps in those early years, or even throughout your time.
Yes, one special person that I even still maintain comms with to this day was, at the time, my first sergeant. Well, he's now retired Sergeant Major, but First Sergeant Rodriguez. He had a really thick Puerto Rican accent, right? And his thing was, every Monday we gonna run, we are gonna run, and we're gonna call cadence. And that was his thing, running every Monday. But he was so humble and so great at developing soldiers, right? One of the things that I do admire about some of the greatest leaders that I had was that they trusted me. They saw my potential, right? Where maybe others didn't, right? But they took me under their wing, and they really showed me the value of leading, right? Of leading other people, developing other people. And they took that time to do it for me. So when I became a young E5, which I became a young E5 very young, like I think I was like 23,
Oh, yeah.
23 or 24, it was nerve-wracking, but I always went back to the principles that he taught me, as he was molding me into the leader that I became. And he actually came into my promotion for Master Sergeant. And it was
That's wonderful.
yes, it was such a surprise. I was not even expecting that. When I was in SWIC, a special operations training group, he came to my promotion, and that was so touching. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, I mean, and just the fact that I'm sure that he was just so proud, because just thinking about how he knew you when you were just young, and a young soldier here, young Shirley, and then to think about how much you've grown since then, and now here you are leading soldiers, and he will see that reflection of even his leadership and mentorship. And I love that you keep comms with him still today. That's fantastic. And well, you touched on the special operations community. So that's not something that you came in as. So was it another billboard that you saw that was like, join the special operations community, put yourself through more grief? No, how was that for you?
So that was kind of like a marketing tactic from my buddies, but no,
Shirley, you're like
that's how I came across that. But well, what happened was that when I was in my second deployment to Iraq, I was the ammunition section chief. So I managed the whole ammunition supply point down where we were in Iraq. And some of our customers were from civil affairs, and so they would come and we will supply them with ammunition for their missions and things like that. And so as I came across them, we made friends. And of course, I also already had buddies that had transitioned over to civil affairs. And that's why I kind of took an interest when these customers came, to get issued ammo. I would ask them about civil affairs. And so at the time, I was already, I think, 8 years into my career and in the 82nd Airborne Division. And I already knew that at that point I needed to change, because I kind of already sort of mastered like my career field, right? And so it was either going into chief warrant officer or coming into the special operations community as as an enlisted, right? And so at the time it worked out to where there was an opening to get packets in for people that wanted to apply for becoming a civil affairs. They talked to me a little bit about what civil affairs was, even though there's many interpretations of what that is, but I really liked what I heard. And I'm like, okay, I'm very interested in doing this. How do I go about it? So, they provided me, a point of contact, and they gave me all the requirements that you needed to meet. And, I was coming to, I spoke to my leadership at the time, and they understood that, it was time for me to go for a change. And I submitted my packet and got selected. It was a pretty rigorous at the time to be selected, and when I got selected, I was so happy. And of course, that was another transition in my career field to something even bigger, right? So.
Oh, yes. I mean, goodness, civil affairs. So you mentioned about the different definitions. So for our listeners who don't know what civil affairs does or who they are, what is your definition of civil affairs?
So my definition, right, in general.
Different from my definition.
Yeah, so we work by, through, and with host nation governments to reestablish essential services in different parts of the world, right? So where strife is happening, grief is happening, where the population is not necessarily connected to its government, we're there to either be a liaison for that government official or that military officer towards their government, right? Or we are advisors to that government on different areas of special functionalities within a government structure. And that's kind of where the reserve CA come in, because they're specialists on, you know, the law side of things, on
Yes.
essential services. So that's kind of how we liaise with them. But definitely with the special operations part of it, we would again help and work through, you know, host nation military and host nation government officials to reestablish, you know, essential services overall to serve the community.
And it's just such a rewarding job. I mean, just in seeing, I'm not civil affairs, but just in working with civil affairs and seeing what you all do, it's pretty remarkable. And the fact that you get to go to all different locations, different places. So with that being said, do you have a favorite place that the Army has sent you? I know Fort Bragg is up there as your top for sure.
My top and only, not to my choosing, but that's just that kind of the way it happened. But yeah.
Which one?
Fort Bragg would be my
yeah.
only choice. But what I'm saying is for my Dewey Station. But for the places that I've been around the world, one of my favorite places was Africa. When I went,
I didn't know you got to go there. That's incredible.
Oh yeah. So I worked as a special operations liaison element in Senegal at the embassy over there, and so I liaise with the host nation military and Department of Defense for initiatives over there. But I really loved it because I got to learn a lot of the embassy's functionalities and initiatives and things like that. And then, of course, the culture, the African culture, the people, the food, everything. And even the places that I went were just remarkable. I never would have imagined even, you know, being in places like that. And, you know, and so the initiatives that we did at the time were just very valuable and very, the people took it as something very positive. And so I really loved that experience out there. I was there for 9 months. So. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, I've never been, just to imagine how beautiful and amazing that was that you got the opportunity to do that. Especially, I think one of the most rewarding things about us being in the special operations community is that chance to work with the host nation. I mean, it's so rewarding to be able to actually go in to the villages, go in and go to these places where the locals are, where the people are, to really experience that culture. It's not something that we're reading about in books or online. We're literally getting to experience it firsthand, all of it. So that's great. Definitely can be with you right there on that. And I can't move on from your time in service without talking about how badass you are for being a jump master. So listeners don't know, like, Shirley over here is a jump master. And I mean, it goes without saying, the fact that you were in 82nd Airborne, you all jump a lot over there.
Yes.
But even that time that you ended up in the special operations community, was that something, do you love jumping out of airplanes? Is that, you talk to us a little bit about that journey and then ending up as a jump master?
Yeah, so it's crazy because now thinking back, every decision that I've ever made, whether in my civilian life or military, has been the road less traveled, right? So when I was in AIT, and that's the school that they send us to learn like our careers, you know, there was a time where our drill sergeant was like, hey, there's a couple of openings to, you know, who wants to volunteer to go to airborne school, right? And so who the heck wants to jump out of airplanes, right? That's like absurd and
My
crazy,
hand's going back down.
you
Mhm.
know, like in a perfectly developed, you know, plane. Like, who the heck wants to do that? And I was the only one in the group that said, I'll do it.
It was on a billboard. It's
Yes. Who wants to join to become airborne? And I was the only one that said, you know, I'll do it. And I became the favorite of the drill sergeant, I guess. I don't know, because I was like in his good graces, because he would be up my throat like white on rice. But you know, I went to airborne school, and it's not like I always like I love to jump, but I developed a liking to the process of ensuring that each jumper, you know, exits out safely. You know, I love the whole beginning to end of preparation and planning. And then of course, with time, like when I jumped, you know, develop that confidence, you know, in doing something outrageous, right? Because it's about having courage and taking chances, right? But I developed like this rush. It was kind of like a rush when I would, you know, jump out of the airplane. Of course, you know, before that, I'm like praying to the Lord, right? But definitely as I took my step, a great rigorous exit, you know, and my parachute open, I was like, oh, another great jump. So
I can't imagine the alternative.
Oh my goodness. Oh, let me tell you, I prepare very well for that, but then again, you can never prepare enough for that, right? But you know, thankfully, throughout my 20 years, every time I jumped, it was a good landing. So yeah, and then when I went to the special operations community and I became, you know, a jump master, that's when I really saw the backside of things, right? And like I said, you know, the preparation, the planning, the ensuring that the example that you have to be for these soldiers, because they're entrusting you to drive them all the way to a successful exit without any injuries, right? And so
I love that the chaplain shows up right before we get on the plane. That's always the most comforting part of airborne operations. Where's the chaplain?
You gotta bless us. Without that blessing, we're not jumping.
So I was like, I never felt closer to God than when I'm about to jump out of an airplane. I swear.
Let me tell you, exactly. But it was fun times. It was great times. You know, you even become closer with your team of jump masters, and even when you're being a jump master of your own soldiers, you develop that relationship, just that bond, you know, that they can trust you. They can trust you to lead them out, you know, safely. They can trust you, you know, in the battlefield and everything like that. So it was a lot of fun for me. I do miss it a lot, because I see myself sometimes doing the little jump master dance, you know, where you're checking people's, you know, equipment. And stuff. For me, that's how I passed the course. I just saw it as a dance, and I'm a dancer. I love dancing. So
oh yes. Did you end up having a cool nickname on your anklet? Did your red anklet have any?
No, a lot of people, what they will call me as Shirley B or BB, something like that, you know, or Cheryl, you know, that's
Shirley from the block. What is it?
Shirley from the block. I know, right? Because I'm from the Bronx. But no, it was kind of like Shirley B, you know, hey B, you know, that's what they would. That's what I had, like Cheryl, and then in parentheses B. That's kind of what they call me.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, that's why I always say, like, hands down, you're a badass. I mean, just for doing that. I don't have nearly enough jumps, and I was not in line to try to become a jump master. So the fact that you achieved that and you really enjoyed it, and I think the confidence piece, it speaks volumes too, because it really does take that confidence, you know, in yourself and your ability to do your job right, because we can see that, you know, those who are following you, they're not going to want to follow you out of that plane or trust you with their life if you don't look like you know what you're doing and you don't have that confidence. So, you know, I just think that it's no question that you ended up leading soldiers like you did at the height of your career. And so that brings me to sort of this past year, this journey that we've been on.
Oh my goodness, what a roller coaster.
So, fast forward now we hit COVID time, the pandemic, and that time, you had submitted your packet, you're heading towards retirement. What was that transition like for you? And maybe some of the challenges that you face, especially in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah, so at the time I was closing out my first sergeant time, and so I had to a little bit juggle that with preparing for transition. I had already known 2 to 3 years already that at 20 I was gonna hang up the gloves, and I love the organization, but again, I had the same feeling that the winds were changing in my life, just like when I was a logistical NCO at that 8-year mark. It was time for a change. So I knew that once I completed my first sergeant time, it was time for a change, right? I think I felt satisfied that I served well, right? And so I decided that it was time for me to make another transition. And so, of course, even though I knew that I wanted to transition, right, it was nerve-wracking because I never had a job in my life, before the military. And all I knew was the military, its culture, the lifestyle, right? How we went about things, to now having to figure stuff out on my own, and not having anybody tell me, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's kind of like you're your own artist and you're kind of like painting on that canvas. And whatever comes out is what's going to come out, right? And so that's all I knew, right? But I think what helped me out a lot was people like you, like JB, and other folks that I was able to come across and kind of meld within you guys to form that tribe at the time, which was our transitional tribe. And that is where I felt so comfortable and so assured that things were going to be okay. And of course, also being part of, workshops such as the Honor Foundation that you and I, attended, and we were both honor women, of course. Woo, woo. The honor women.
Peer voted.
Yes, peer voted. Yes. And so, as you very well know, that really, it's a turning point, right? Because it makes you question a lot of the things that you should question in your life as to how do you want to live? Who are you right now? What are your values outside of the military, right? And so even though I was searching for that, I still felt good that things were going to look up at the end because I had support like that, and with you guys' support and our meetups at the bar, the before and after review program where we met and exchanged ideas and resources and information. I'm telling you that helped so much. And so it was up and down. It was up and down for me. I was still trying to figure it out. And of course, even a couple months after my retirement till now, I'm still growing and evolving, and I'm still coming into my own outside of the uniform. So I think what lessened the blow was finding a support group that we can together cross over that finish line.
Absolutely. And I think that even just in the time that I knew you, here's me transitioning out, and I'm looking at you, and you seemed so confident the whole time, but there were certain points where you made yourself vulnerable, where you admitted out loud, voiced it out loud, I don't know what to do, or I'm still figuring it out. I'm still learning. And, I think that that was courageous in itself, because we have brothers and sisters that we've served with that are having trouble admitting that they don't know what to do. It's like the first time, that you even just said it right there, that you didn't have a job before you joined the Army. Like the Army was it. And then having served honorably 20 years, you get it, you love that organization, you know what you're doing, and then you get out, and then you got this whole big world with choices, you got options, and you got to figure out, what does Shirley want to do instead of the Army. The Army tells you what kind of person they want to make E7, what kind of person they want for an E8. And you don't have that on this side. It's kind of like, what does Shirley want? What do you want? And, what does Mary Kate want? I think that was really challenging, but looking at your process, your journey was so inspiring, even to me, to just take a step back. I kept thinking, okay, it's us young ones that are getting out. And, as far as rank goes, like, we're still young in our Army career, and we're thinking, okay, we're going to step out. We're the ones that need all the help. But then I took a step back, and probably halfway through my transition, I was like, oh my goodness, it's the senior leaders that really need help too.
Yes.
I think we look at it as, you all have it all together, because you all look like you have it all together all the time. And it really is a humbling experience going through the transition. And you said it best right there about finding your tribe, finding people to stick with you through this process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, going back to that quote, right, that I mentioned at
Yes.
first, the first person you must lead is yourself. And what we leaders, and all of us are leaders, right? Because the military is a big leadership school, is the leadership capability to take ownership of your journey, even though you don't know where the heck you're going, right? And so us as leaders, as senior leaders, that's kind of like all we have. It's like, okay, we're leaders here, so we gotta take charge of our own ride, right? And see where it leads us. But one of the other things that I was always certain about is that this was a unique transition point in my life, and I wanted to be as intentional as possible about it, right? Not to say that, I want to be controlling of everything that was happening. No, it's just that I knew at the other side of the tunnel what I wanted to see when I, made that final leap. And so I put in place things that would lead me there, right? And so even though I didn't really know, like, okay, who am I completely, like, what do I want to do? I knew that there were things that I was coming across that little by little was helping me put together that puzzle piece, right? And the puzzle and the painting is not complete yet, right? I'm still, I wanted to be as intentional as possible with my journey.
I love that, as intentional as possible with your journey. And I think that that's such a great point to make, because it's not like you have all the time in the world to make that transition either.
Mhm.
It's not like, go at Shirley's pace or go at Mary Kate's pace. It's like the Army literally launches you from the airplane on that last
Yes,
day, and good luck. So
exactly.
hope your
Yeah.
chute opens, kind of thing. Just, so it's
Right
really,
on.
yeah, it's like, in jump into the unknown, and you're just hoping that you have a safe landing. And, I think, like, you're right to admit that I still feel like I'm transitioning, and it's already been like 7, 8 months for me. So I still feel like I'm figuring things out and learning about what I want to do. But I also think that we should continue doing that. I think all of us, whether we wore the uniform or not, just that active learning, continuing to learn, continuing to grow and self-reflect. But, when you mentioned the before after action review, getting that time to really meet up together with service members from the different sides of Fort Bragg that I had never met in my life, probably wouldn't have met them otherwise, but to know,
Right.
like, all different ranks were going through this together. What would you say to a room of transitioning service members now, sort of a piece of advice to talk to them now that you're at this point in your journey?
Oh, wow. There's several, but I would say, you know, take time to get to know yourself again, be your own friend, get to know yourself. And again, I utilize intentionality when you do that, right? Because it's like when I got out, I took it a little bit for granted, because I thought I had it, I thought I was good. But then I got to a point where I really had to sit down and be like, okay, like I really need to get serious about who am I and what do I really love and what do I enjoy in life. And so one of the things that I would say is get to know yourself again. Really sit down and write down, like, what are your own personal values, not the military values, even though some of them, can relate or cross over, but be serious with yourself, like be honest with yourself and explore those. And of course, your tribe. I'm telling you, like, that's what helped me so much. That's what led me, that's what helped me stay motivated through this journey. That's what helped me not feel uncertain, because I know there were some nights, Mary Kate, that I would text you or call you, and be vulnerable. And you tell me it's okay. You want to go get coffee tomorrow to Leclerc's,
Yes, Leclerc's.
And,
Let's go.
I appreciated that. That really,
Yes.
really, I'm telling you, I will never forget that. So, again, get to know yourself and your values, find your tribe, right? Find your tribe. And of course, again, find a mentor. A lot of what helped me too, aside from my tribe, is to find a mentor in the areas that I was interested in going into, and that helped me a lot because they put certain things into perspective that I didn't really think about, right? Because they're already on the other side and they can provide me a glimpse of that. And so that really helped me a lot. That's what I would tell the group.
Absolutely. I really love that. I think I agree with everything you said, your advice to this point. And the tribe piece, getting to take that time to get to know yourself. I was even just thinking as you were talking about when I first spoke to you, I actually think I was at a consignment shop looking at, yeah, I was just at a consignment shop wandering around and, got that call to talk to you because Holty, from the Honor Foundation was like, you got to talk to Shirley. And when he told me, Shirley is the first sergeant, I was like, oh no, I was getting all scared. I was like, you gotta talk to this first sergeant. But we hit it off so well. And it's just been such an honor to be able to go through this journey with you and to know that accountability piece, to know that even on our down days, we could just pick up the phone, even if it's just leaving a voice message to just, check in and just, I got your six. And sometimes that's all we need to hear to know, okay, I can do this. I can brush myself off. I can do this. I can face the day. Because boy, is it hard sometimes to face the day. Especially when you want, it's like your family's expecting, they ask the questions, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do next? And so it's hard sometimes when you just, it's okay to say, I don't know right now.
Right.
But
And sometimes they weren't in the military, so they can't really relate to how you're feeling, like the emotional roller coaster that you're going through, right? Because you're coming out of a big organization that was part of your life. So it's really important to have your group of people that can certainly relate. And when you say something, like, you don't have to explain yourself because they got you, like they know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And it doesn't hurt to meet up. I think even coming out of the pandemic, that was something that we just took for granted, was being able to meet in person. So being able to do that, have a battle buddy that I could go out and have a cup of coffee, go and sit in a cafe with, second to none, being able to do that. And so I wanted to talk about sort of what you are doing now, and your journey. I see you doing those workouts and accountability groups. So I'd love to hear about what you've been up to since you got off active duty.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So, I just had so many ideas and things that I wanted to do. Of course, I can't tackle them all, right? I gotta eat this elephant, one little bite at a time. But, I knew that even though I wanted to go to corporate America, right? And I had the opportunity, I think at the time I needed to make another move, right? And again, I still walked the road less traveled, right? Because at the end of the day, and this is a secret that I'm putting out to the world, of course, now, but I ultimately want to become an entrepreneur, right? I just kind of want to live my life on my terms and, add value into other people's lives with things that I feel as though would help them grow, right? And so I needed that flexibility, and I work remote. I got a really good job at this software startup, and I work remote, and the jobs thus far has been really, really good because we're a small team, and that kind of still gives me that hunger satisfaction of working in a small team, right? And so
Yes.
and so it's been great. The people there have been great to me, and provided me with so much support, right? And so being at that job and doing my my 9 to 5 as a remote worker really lends me the opportunity to focus on my other projects, right? And so that leads me to going back to, man, what do I really love? And since I was young, even though that I've been a very creative person, things like that, I also was a very active person. I've always been into sports aside from that, and always been active, always loved working out. So I'm like, man, I really love the health and wellness industry. I really do.
Oh yeah.
And that's why obviously I didn't mind it in the military because I loved it. I hated doing it at the time because it hurt. But after that, I just felt so much better. And so, I wanted to be part of that. And now, aside from me going on my journey of getting back into my optimal health, I also, provide, products for people for health and wellness. And so I got, my little side hustle, my little, entrepreneurial venture there where I'm providing, these services to other people. And also I'm looking into franchising. So great thing that came out of the Honor Foundation was me getting to know a special lady by the name of Laura Reu, who's a franchise coach and has been my coach since the Honor Foundation, right? And so we finally are getting into, the industry that I want to get into, aside from the health and wellness. And we're exploring that, and that is something that I'm working at. And of course, just developing my entrepreneurial journey, and little by little is coming into fruition. And I'm just kind of I'm riding the wave, I'm riding the wave of things that are coming together. And I'm really just, instead of me trying to control everything, I'm just enjoying the journey and seeing where it takes me. And of course, if I am, aside from paying it forward to the veteran community, which is something that I love to do too, and I'm doing it, I'm also providing health and wellness coaching and services to others to better, their life. So yeah, it's a lot of little things here and there, but I mean, you follow me and you kind of see it kind of evolving. So a lot greater things to come.
And I've seen, I mean, we touched on this earlier about the strong women in your family. And I've sort of been seeing that too, that you've been surrounding yourself with a lot of strong women and going to these different conventions and things like that. And I know you still continue to pay it forward and giving back by, I've seen you as guest speaker at numerous different events, just being able to talk about your journey. So I love that you've added in this health and wellness component too, because I find that it's so important. I mean, you talk about like mission readiness in the military, but now it's really just that self-care piece that you're adding to that and letting folks know about how important that is.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it's finding your tribe, right? I feel as though, as veterans, as military, we still have so much potential to become great entrepreneurs because we have that leadership capability, we have that discipline, we have that drive, right? And so I didn't know my potential until I had to insert myself yet another tribe of entrepreneurs that were on the other side and really led me to know that, hey, it's okay. You can become an entrepreneur. So, be in our group and little by little, you'll build that confidence. And so that's kind of what I'm, those are my efforts right now. And it's coming to fruition and it's paying off.
Well, I love that. I love that. And thank you for paying it forward, because I know you talked before, you have some veterans that really just want to do their own thing, and that's totally fine too. They've earned the right to do that. But then there's others, I really wanted to bring you on Veteran Voices because I know that you continue to give back, continue to pay it forward in so many different areas, whether that's empowering women veterans, you even talk to the spouse community, literally anybody, everybody, and you're always just wanting to pour so much of yourself out, but you're so good at also pouring back in to make sure that you take care of yourself. And it really shows just in so many different areas. And so it's just again, an honor. Thank you so much for joining on Veteran Voices. And I wanted, in case folks want to learn more and talk to you further about anything that was discussed today, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they can go into my Facebook page, Shirleys.Baez. And they can also follow me at LinkedIn, Shirley Baez, www.linkedin.com/in/Shirley-Baez/ for LinkedIn. And then of course for Instagram. So you guys can follow me on my journey and maybe inspire some. It's www.instagram.com/Shirl_BB/.
Great. I love that. And I hope that, our listeners today found a lot of value, because I know I continue to learn from you. I continue to tap in, and I definitely could use that little bit of motivation that you've got going on as far as health and wellness goes. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey from beginning to end. And I know it's actually not even the end, it's still evolving. So on behalf of the entire team here at Veteran Voices, thank you so much for tuning in. We invite you to find us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. Big thanks to our partners at Best Industry. This is Mary Kate Soliva wishing all of our listeners nothing but the best. Stay motivated, do good, give forward, and be the change that's needed. And on that note, we will see you next time. Thank you so much, Shirley, and thank you, everybody.